Iqbal, Chapter 5. It was a special morning when foreign customers arrived. Husan Khan couldn't bully us too badly in their presence. He had to convince them that we were treated well. "These are my apprentices," he would say, distributing affectionate pats left and right. "Here they learn an honest profession that will assure them a better future, one without hunger and poverty. They're like my own family." I don't really know if the foreigners believed him or not. Foreigners were funny that way. You didn't really know what to make of them. Usually, they were elegantly dressed men with cold eyes, but every now and then a woman would visit, a lady whose legs and arms weren't covered, and she would say, "What lovely children." I'm not sure we were so lovely. That morning we had a bigger breakfast than usual, which alone put us in a good mood, and we were allowed to laugh and chat while we waited to pass the filthy curtain outside the bathroom. The numbskulls had already finished, and for the sake of the foreigners they would not be chained to their looms that day. The rest of us were waiting in line, pushing and shoving. "Be good, children, be good," called the mistress, but it didn't sound like her usual nasty warning. Even Husan, who usually appeared halfway through the morning, pulling up his pants and sleepy-eyed, was already awake and agitated. He was sweaty and talked nonstop. Kareem was terrified by the idea that something could go wrong and that Hussein would blame it on him. The finished carpets were ready in the storage room, and the ones in the making were on display in the looms. There was almost a festive air to the place. I was waiting my turn. Little Maria hung on my skirt, and I was trying to avoid Ali's elbows and Salman's pinches. I felt a strange feeling inside me, one like wind in my breast. I was sure that I could jump very high, soar, and finally reach the edge of the window frame. Certainly, nobody could have imagined what was going to happen. Nobody was paying much attention to Iqbal, who was standing beside his loom. Most of the children avoided him because they were envious. Also, he tended to keep to himself as though he was occupied with serious thoughts. I never got my turn at the bathroom that morning, and I never reached the window that looked out into the flowering almond. Husan, nervous and excited, paced around the workshop. Suddenly he stopped and turned white. He was looking at something behind us. I remember his shocked eyes and his mouth slowly opening and revealing his tobacco-blackened teeth. I will never forget what I saw next. Iqbal was standing next to his loom, and behind him was his carpet, that marvelous carpet with its complicated design and rich blue that had never been seen before. It was perfect. Iqbal had worked better and faster than anyone else could have. The foreigners would go crazy over a rug like that. Iqbal was pale, too, but not as pale as Husan Khan. He took the knife that we used to cut the ends of our knots, and he raised it above his head, and he seemed to look each of us in the eye, and then he calmly turned and cut the carpet from top to bottom, right through the middle. "No," I thought, "don't." In the silence that had fallen over the workshop, we heard the distinct rip of the sliced threads. Husan Khan screamed like a stuck pig. The mistress screamed, and Kareem screamed, because he always did everything they did. We saw them take off across the room, raising a cloud of dust and lint, tripping over each other, cursing and swearing as true believers should never do. Before they could grab him and take the knife away, Iqbal had cut twice more, and the world's most beautiful blue carpet was in pieces on the red earth of the floor. The silence seemed to last forever. Instinctively, looking for protection, we had gathered in a corner of the workshop. Husan Khan was standing in front of Iqbal, threatening Iqbal with his sheer size. His face was red, and the swollen veins in his neck looked ready to burst. He was holding the knife that he had taken from Iqbal, and for a terrible moment we all thought, "He's going to kill him." The mistress sobbed and collected the pieces of rug from the floor, wiping off the red dust as if a miracle might put them back together. Kareem held his head in his hands. He was desperate, even though it wasn't his property. "Hell, child!" hissed Husan. "Hell, child! They said you were a rebel and a traitor," they said. "Husan, don't trust him. He's a viper. He's a poisonous snake. And irate. But I, blind and stupid, I thought, you will pay for this. Oh, you will pay." "Into the tomb," howled the mistress. "Throw him in the tomb and never let him out again." They grabbed him by the arms and they dragged him into the courtyard. We followed, but stopped at the door like a group of frightened baby chicks. We saw Iqbal's knees scrape on the stones on the ground, his arm bang against the edge of the well. The master stopped at the rusty iron door and pulled it slowly open on rasping hinges. We saw him disappear down the steps into the dark, jerking Iqbal after him. Then we heard the awful, terrifying sound that haunted our sleep. The grate of the tomb as it was raised, and then bang, it fell closed. The sound echoed in the heavy heat of the courtyard. We couldn't breathe. The air was motionless. The dust lay still. Only the horseflies stirred, continuing to bite at our legs, but nobody even attempted to swat them away. Husan Khan came back up from the underground. We heard his slow, heavy footsteps. When he emerged into the sun, he squinted his eyes, and he closed the door with one final push and approached us where we were, still clinging together at the entrance of the workshop. "To work," he growled. We returned to our looms. We took up our work. All together, the same movements, the same sound of the comb. Tumph, tumph, tumph. Husan stood behind us in silence. We could feel his eyes looking through us. Tumph, tumph, tumph. Ali, who worked on my right, mouthed the words, "Why did he do it?" And I gestured quickly, "I don't know." And as he was being dragged over the stones of the courtyard, just a second before he disappeared, Iqbal had turned his head and looked at me. He wanted to say something. I wasn't sure I understood, but one thing seemed clear. Iqbal was as frightened as we were, but he had done it all the same. Now you need to read chapter 6 on your own.